Welcome to Exploring Possibilities, a show where we interview a variety of holistic professionals and lightworkers who are really making a bigger difference in our world. I'm your host, Cheryl Sitz, and it was my purpose in creating this show to introduce you to the incredible people that I'm meeting on my own journey. You'll hear their stories because their stories really are our stories, and we'll explore the vast realm of holistic healing and learn how we can co-create holistic sustainability. There's a lot of possibilities out there we don't often hear about, so this is a way we can learn and grow together on this path. Don't hesitate to reach out and connect with anybody you might hear who resonates for you, because we've got a lot of great guests. Special thanks to Mario Rosales of Tech Life Balance. He does a lot of hard work behind the scenes producing these and publishing our podcasts, as well as on our Journey of Possibilities website. He really helps me use technology to make a bigger difference, so I appreciate it very much. Our guest for this visit on Exploring Possibilities is Gail Minogue, and I don't know how familiar you are with this woman, but if you aren't, you need to be. She's a trends analyst, a speaker, a trainer, and a professional numerology consultant. I have not had a numerologist on before, so I'm starting right at the top. Hi, Gail.
Hi. Nice to hear you.
Oh, I had the pleasure of your workshop here at the White Eagle Lodge last year, and I was amazed that you have such a very grounded approach to getting people right into numerology that I wanted to have you on the show and play with that a little bit. But first, I'd like to ask you how you got into all of this. Were you always a numbers person?
No, never. I was brought up very mainstream, very normal. My father, banker, my family, went to church and all. I was just basically your garden variety person, never interested really in all of this. But I was working at the time in Houston, Texas. I was opening up a management office. I was sent there to open an office for a company at that time called Sprint. So this is a really long time ago. And I had a what we call, for lack of a better word, a visit, a nightly visit. And I was stunned, but I certainly was also believed it entirely. It was something that I would not express to other people because they would think I was crazy, and I had very mainstream work, so that was the end of that. But I was instructed to study Pythagoras, and I was instructed to study Zen, and I had not a clue as to what the heck those two things were. And I really didn't pay attention to astrology. I didn't pay attention to signs or any of this stuff. But that will make you wake up. And so I just quietly began to study Pythagoras and Pythagorean theorems of mathematics. And I was really amazed at this knowledge and information, because Pythagoras had schools in Crotona, which is really part of Italy or Greece, that whole region, back about 635 BC. And he taught this, and then finally, when it went underground because everybody was either killed off or whatever, it became a study that, so the Egyptians knew. I mean, probably as long as mankind has tried to figure out why is this all happening, why are we here. So I began to study this order, and it became really very clear that this was a geometric situation. And it was a precision of the universe, and what you'll hear, the music of the spheres, the actual sound of the spheres. But the higher mathematics goes with it, but where does this fit with your practical everyday stuff? Who are you? Well, it began to be very clear that everything here was numerically ordered, whether it was a letter, whether it was a date of birth, anything. It all had a mathematics to it. If you took a pair of eyeglasses and you broke it down, it would have a chemical formula that would be mathematical. And so you began to see cycles inside of cycles of time frames when events happened. Moving this forward for many years, this study, I began to use it with the understanding of letters and then the understanding of what they meant and how they came together, both the dates of birth of people, the names of people, the names of towns, the names of countries, everything. And you began to see what we'll call the actual history of a person or of a place. And you began to see then what was missing and what was excessive. The timing of things, you began to see the patterns. So this brought me to what they basically now call, layman's terms, numerology. But it came from that premise, and then about a year and a half after that first visit, I had another visit. That was, again, instructing me to do specific work, and it was never clear as to what the heck is that, but it was very clear that I was to do it. And that changed my whole life. Even though I stayed in the mainstream world, I actually became a commodities broker, and I'm still a commodities broker. So my world is very grounded, but my feet are here, but my head is really not here all the time at all. I go in and out of these worlds and use them in my daily work. So it's quite amazing when I'm either talking about what trends are going on in the United States or what's going on in a person's life, meaning what did they come in with? What's their wound of childhood? What are their cycles of time for success? How long is a blueprint? And so there's a lot to it. And the more I got on, the more people wanted to know, well, what's going on right now? Spiritually, that's one thing. Politically, economically, socially, religious changes. Oh my gosh, all these things are set up on wonderful cycles, and when cycles end, new ones begin, and everything just continuously moves forward in creation and create and create and create. One of the things you find that Earth is a great place to come and learn how to handle emotional energy, and a great place to come to learn how to handle free will. So every decision you make here will have a element of emotions to it, whether you get married, whether you get divorced. It will have also an opportunity for you to always be at choice with your free will. You always have a blueprint you're working with. It is in your name, and within that tells you what you were intending to accomplish here. What are your issues? What type of personality did you create while you're here? And that's not who you are, it's what you're using here. And then what really down deep is who you really are from other lives and what you really are all about. It's a tremendous amount of information.
Yes, it is. And you do a great job in your book of starting to break some of that down for anybody that may already be lost in what you're talking about. You
must speak the language of the everyday person. I mean, you have to be able to reach people where they are.
Well, your book, Divine Design, gives easy step-by-step process in how to figure out what you meant when you said the blueprint's in your name, what you mean about the life path and the cycles of your life. All of that was so insightful for me, and I've still got flags all through it and big circles and letters, and it really is a workbook for me, but it sticks.
Yeah, some people actually have done group workshops on this little book, and I'm like, wow, so fascinating to me. So when I did it, I thought, well, this is so simple, it's probably too simple. And then when I did the third edition, I added some more last year about simple, funny, funky things like your driver's license and like why are so many highways with fives and somebody's speeding things. All these numbers have great significance. House numbers, office numbers, great significance. What a license plate tells the world about you, even if you get it randomly from the Department of Motor Vehicles. This is an incredibly ordered up area of life. I mean, it looks like it's random. Well, it really is not random.
So when the driver's license office gave me my driver's license number, that was not random.
No. It's how you want to be seen by other people. Now you have to know what the significance of the numbers are to understand that. So you would have to add your entire driver's license on the plate. I'm talking about the plate, not the number on your actual card, but on your car.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So the plate is what you show the world, and that is how you want to be seen by them. Whether it's true about you is something else, but that's how you would like other people to see you, is by your license plate. And that's randomly selected unless you do the custom plates, the vanity plates. But that also tells the world how you want to be seen.
Yes. You mentioned about it in bigger ways, how this affects us politically and around the world. Can you speak about that for a minute in terms of the countries and what that all means?
Right. Well, every country has a blueprint. So every country has a personality, has a certain time and place that it happened. Even China, it's been through several incarnations of different emperors and all of this, so it keeps reinventing. One of the things that's really interesting is the United States, a very unusual place. It ushered in the beginning of the Aquarian Age, which the United States was officially put together in 1776 at the Declaration. So we call that its date of birth. And it really is the prep of the Aquarian Age, is which we are in now. And the Aquarian Age will bring us about 2,300 years of changes in what, say, humankind is to evolve, how it's to evolve. So America was the hothouse, or was the incubator to begin it. And that is why it is a very, very unusual place. And how it was to start, it was to be the catalyst of change for the world. It has a 5 life path. So it is a catalyst, and it has been changing the world ever since it was founded, through either its marketing, its capitalism, its industries, now its technology, et cetera, et cetera. It goes all over the world into wars and you name it, marketing our Coca-Cola. But the underlying purpose of it is to bring progress and to develop the individual in the world. This is the purpose of the United States. It does it through capitalism, industry, et cetera, all these different ways. But it is the underlying purpose is to bring the rights and development of the individual, because prior to that, the individual was not respected, was not really, didn't have rights. It was always the collective. The old age was the collective.
Some might argue that we're not progressive, that individualism is not necessarily a positive thing the way that it's going about it. I mean, what do you say about that positive negative? Is it just about the evolution?
Positive negative, everything has a positive negative charge. So the individual must learn how to work within the collective of the old age. So it's a trial and error. The individual has to be respected, has to be developed, but at the same time, it must work within the collective. But you have countries and nations where the individual has no rights. And so we're the hothouse for it. And so we have extreme groups. We have the ACLU, and then we have something else that will, bind together for special interests of the collective.
Right, I see.
So it is always this push-pull as this trend, or shall we say, this purpose gets developed. And then as the purpose of the individual gets developed, you understand that the individual is an individual spark of the divine, or the spark of the greater intelligence, so that that individual can operate from that higher source. It's
interesting we're talking about this. I'm reading a really good book on duality that talks about the purpose of duality and why we always need these pushes and pulls and positive, negative, and yes, and the catalyst is the one that's going to cause that globally.
The United States is a catalyst. That was its whole job, and it was. Most of the founders were significantly Aquarian rising, Aquarian sun, Aquarian moon, major planets in Aquarius to usher in this age. So it's divinely inspired, this place.
Yes.
And it had to have a 5 life path. It's born on a 4-day, which is basically a workaholic.
I know, that's my life path.
Yeah, they're just workaholics. They're learning how to balance work and flexibility and a balanced day. Just a balanced day. But a 4 is always very productive.
Yeah, and being a 4 in a 4 country, the balance is definitely not coming from our natural culture, our national culture for me.
Well, the country is really a 5 life path born on a 4-day. That's very different than a 4 life path.
Oh, okay.
And the 5 life path this is why we have a complete indulgence in certain areas. We go from extreme thinness to extreme heaviness. We go from extremely religiously conservative to extremely secular, or so, liberal, whatever. So it's a pendulum. 5 is the middle number between 1 and 9. So it sees the past and it sees the future. And it tries to bring the past into the future and help it progress. So anytime you have 5 people like Abraham Lincoln or Franklin Delano Roosevelt, these are your progressive agents of change. We have no 5 on the horizon right now in America that are leaders right now. None who was in office in the last, since Franklin Delano Roosevelt has been a 5. And prior to him, it was Teddy Roosevelt and it was Abraham Lincoln.
And no 5s now.
No. We have no agents of change here. Look at our leadership. Yeah. We have orators. We have talkers.
Yes.
We have talkers. We have politicians. We don't have any great leaders. So America will finally create one when it is ready to make this change.
Interesting. We can go to your website, gailminogue.com, and we can actually get your trends that you publish. Don't you publish trends?
Yeah, I come out with a free newsletter every month, and I'll be writing it tomorrow. Tomorrow's the 1st. And then I try to post once a week. And if they sign up on my website and their email address, they'll get a free chapter from the book.
And that's all it takes to get hooked. One chapter and you'll be hooked.
Yeah, one chapter will hook you. And then you will get the newsletter. It's all free. I try to post each week. I don't always get, like this week I was in Palm Springs, so I didn't post anything.
Wow.
But I'll do the newsletter this weekend. So, yeah, and I try to post what changes or trends or what's, except to just help people to understand the greater times we're in. But really to understand themselves and not to be frightened that they have a really divine blueprint that they created before birth and that this is important to them and they need to understand it so that they can move forward easily and effortlessly under more grace than suffering.
So can you give us a little glimpse of how one might use numerology to help them in guiding their life? How can this be helpful to us?
Well, definitely, if you know what, say, numbers are missing in your name, you know what your karmic issues are, and you know why certain things keep occurring to you, or why certain things happen. If you know what your destiny is from your name, that you know what you're really trying to accomplish, then you may make changes in your life and stop doing certain things that are getting you further away from that. The other thing that your date of birth will give you is timing on events. I mean, it is not a good idea to start a business in a 9-year, and we do our personal years every year. So we always know what personal year we're in. But if we do a business in a 9-year, that's a finishing year. It's like a stillborn baby. Your business is going nowhere. So a lot of people don't even understand their own timing, and they do things at the wrong time, and they also don't understand their own karmic corrections, so they'll keep repeating the same thing over and over and wonder why. I just don't get anywhere with that, or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's all very helpful.
It is helpful. I learned a lot from your workshop. I really did, and I'm glad that you're continuing to do those and that we can do so much from the book. You've got several events coming up, in fact, along the West Coast primarily, right, until, I think, March?
Yeah, I have actually a week from the Sunday. I'm doing the Rising Power of the Middle-Aged Woman because we have something called the I Ching in the Book of Days, and from this there's something called Jupiter periods. And every one of these lasts a certain number of years, and they bring in big trends into a society. This is a global condition. So around 2024, we're going to start bringing in the power of the middle-aged woman, which is being prepared. You prepared 10 to 20 years prior to this hitting. So right now, we need to prepare for the power of the middle-aged woman, which will replace a lot of the power that you're seeing right now. And that will be a big 20-year trend.
Will that be socially?
I will be doing a workshop on this a week from Sunday, and then in December I do a talk, and then in January I always do an annual What's in Head for 2015, and then February I'm teaching in some colleges, and it's just delivering information,
It's helpful information.
It's important. People need to understand they didn't just land here, and go to school and get a job and get old and die. That is not what it's about.
I want to ask you about this rising power of the middle-aged women, because I guess I am one.
Yeah.
So are we talking about politically, that kind of rise in power? Are we talking about socially? Are we talking about...
Always. Socially, politically, economically.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes. Right now we have the rise in power of the young male. So you've been seeing for about 15 years or so the rise in power of young men. And this one reason why you see young terrorists around the world take such headline news. Young gang members. It's what we'll call the power of the young male. And then you see also the tech heads. They're mainly all young men. So this actual trend will last till 2024.
Okay. And this is, you say it's Pythagorean, so it's math, and it's also based on astrology?
Well, it's based also on other cycles, because inside these cycles you begin to discover other cycles. And the universe is made up of patterns and cycles. And if I don't want to go into all of that, but just to say that women need to prepare now. And they need to stop doing things to be able to be in their power positions when they start those years. And women have, they've taken what I call soft positions, like psychotherapists or coaches or, things like that. They need to prepare for positions of power, and that's what I will be talking about and how to do that. But Every single person needs to know before they get out of the barn, what is their blueprint?
Yes.
What are they good at? What's their timing? what's their wound? Because every person has a wound that they come in with that they can work with. Some is just lack of self-esteem and lack of value. That means you don't ask for enough money. You may date or be in a relationship with a person who's really not your level, but you stay because, whatever.
Right.
Because you don't value yourself. Some of there's lack of trust. Some is you don't see relationships as there's so many things. But there's major wounds. Each chart has one. Nobody gets spared, and that's also in there. And once you understand what that is, oh boy, can you move forward fast.
How would that help you to know what your wound is? If I knew what my wound was, what would I do
differently? You know it
differently?
when you look at a person's date of birth, and everybody gets one, and then a lot of times people just get stymied by it, and then they don't seem to, whether they're 10 years old or 50 years old. It's the same thing. Maybe they were never heard as a child, and now they're loudmouths. Do you know what I'm saying? And it hurts them.
Yes.
But they don't understand why they are, or where they have to control the conversation. Why? What happened? So what was that wound that you had? Some of this stuff is from past programs, but it's all there, and so we work with numbers. If you're looking for a house, you want to go buy a new house or apartment, you need to know the apartment number or the house number. How does that work with your chart? Say you're missing the number 4. That's one of your karmic lessons. So you move into a 4 house. Not so cool, because all these issues now get activated. Then you wonder why you worked so hard in the house. All you did was work there, and the house you struggled, and blah, blah, blah.
I see.
So it can be very, very important that you know your own chart and go out in the world and be able to apply it to things you're doing. I had a gentleman who rented. He was a big hotshot trainer, and he got a big studio. He was top dog, really. This was in Chicago. And he opens the door on a number 7. That's the unit. That was the number of, it reduced to a 7, his big gym. He did not do well there. And it came to me and said, we can't, no, it's just kind of dead, it's not this, it's that, it's just people aren't interested in all the stuff. And I said, well, you've got a 7, that's a retreat kind of a number. It's a quiet house. Why would I want to go work out there? But I might want to do yoga, and I might want to do meditation there, and I might want to have some classes there like that. He changed his whole formula around of what he began to offer at the gym, and it attracted totally different people, and he did very well.
Okay, so that answered another question for me. I was going to ask you, like on feng shui, there are corrections. If you're in a house and something's the matter, you can fix it. Are there corrections if you find out you've done something wrong? But it sounds like there are. Like he changed his strategy and then it worked.
Yes, he did. He had to make that house more, or that office complex, whatever it was in, he had to make it more inclusive to the 7. The 7 wants. Once you move into that house wants, or that place wants certain things. It already has established itself. So you need to learn to work with it. Now, if that is not compatible with your chart, then you first you have to recognize that and try to avoid it.
Right.
But if you don't know that, then you need to be able to work with this on what does that type of place want.
How does this work with relationships, like couples and families? Does it play out significantly there?
Definitely. I have 4 children, and I am divorced, but my husband was a 5, my daughter's a 5, my son is a 5, and it's amazing how we're like, the 3 of us have so many moves and changes, and good Lord, that's a 5 because they have a lot of living to do. It usually comes from past life where you were quite restricted. Say, for instance, you may have had a lifetime where you lived in Saudi Arabia as a female and were very restricted. So you come back this lifetime and you live 4 or 5 lives in one. So you see the world, you move around. It's very tough. 5s are what I call late bloomers. They don't really get going before 50 very much. Begin to free themselves in their 50s. So you understand a blueprint's at least 120 years. And so you need to start thinking of middle-aged about 60, not 40. That's nuts. And the soul does not come here to retire. That's man-made. So we want to think of what type of careers we want for this part of our life and this part of our life, and never think about retiring. I just came back from Palm Springs, and the majority is all retired, and they look unhealthy. I mean, and they have all these little motorized scooters, and they play golf, and life down there is a very, it's calm, and I like that, but I wouldn't want to be in that because you need the invigoration of creation. And remember, creation is destructive and creative. There's always creating going on. Every second that creation is going on. It's important that we remember, just because we reach a certain age, that doesn't mean we prepare ourselves to check out or have enough money to live to that. No, we need to think about what part of our life we want to do what. But we have been programmed to think of retirement having enough money, and what gives people fit is that they're afraid they won't have enough money, or will it last, or what if they lose it, or et cetera, et cetera. So it is very, very important to talk to the body in a way that that your very productive years are in your 60s and 70s and 80s. And if you saw the New York Times last Sunday, they had a very big magazine section on, many, many, many people working in their 80s now, which is good. You really want to think that way, and then you will have a better body as well because you're thinking that way now. You're not thinking of all these aches and pains of aging because that's what all around you is talking about.
Well, it's probably also about redefining what we call work. I've got a work-life path. I'm going to be working, and we did the segments of life in your workshop too, and I was kind of disappointed initially to see that I'm going to be working until I die, I guess. But, what does work look like? I'm changing that as it goes.
That's what work is. What is work? Work is something I enjoy. I can do it when I want to do it. I feel productive. It helps me stay creative and juicy,
Yeah.
If I want to take a little time off, I can do it. See, Americans are fixated on work. Like, we go to workshops.
We work out.
And we work out, and we can't, it's like, good Lord. And so what's happening, what's giving people fit is everything is contracting. We got about another 9 more years of contraction. And so this is contracting the workplace. So globally, there's going to be many, many more workers than there are going to be positions to fill. And it's going to be very, very highly skilled. So what are we going to do globally with all these people who will not be able to work?
Yes.
And this is a conundrum for governments, for social structures, but this is already here.
Yes, it is.
And people are scared to death, and they don't understand it. We had a huge expansive period prior to this. We had cheap airfare and cheap everything and cheap houses and blah, blah, and now everything's contracted since 2008. And it's going to get more so, and more people will be unemployed because they will be replaced by technology, by robots, by algorithms that can do what you do.
And you said this is going to go on for how much longer?
This contraction period is about a little under 9 more years.
That's a lot for where we're at already.
The governments don't know what to do or how to do it, and what do we do with all these people.
Yeah.
It's a great inequality because we just have a certain segment of all societies benefiting from this. I mean, we're benefiting by having a smarter phone, but so what?
Right.
And we'll have driverless cars, trucks, which will put more people out of work.
Yeah.
And so then what do we do then? I mean, this is not something that's just going to go away. It's going to exponentially grow, that more people, and this is a global phenomenon. The United States is very involved in the seeding of a lot of this because, remember, we are the catalyst of change. And what you see going on in the Middle East is very much part of this, what I call the young male. And also that region was missed by the last Renaissance. So the Renaissance happened every 500 years. And the last Renaissance never touched that area of the world at all. So it's being dragged, kicking and screaming, into this new segment of the world society, into this age. And the biggest problem is that they don't have a seat at the table of the rest of the world. Not in business, not in finance, not in education, not in anything. So it's a free-for-all, but it's kicking and screaming. It's all part of the human race, so they're going whether they like it or not. It is pretty messy, and a lot of people will die as this transformation takes place.
It's interesting that you bring that up, too, as you're saying about a lot of people dying, because that's also been something I've been hearing and talking about a lot lately is we have a lot of people leaving this planet right now. Is there something you see in the numbers to explain any of that?
Well, people, two ways that people feel that it's acceptable to leave, and that is heart attacks and cancer. I mean, if I shoot myself, that is not so acceptable.
Right.
Or if I run myself into a tree, that is not really acceptable. These two ways are very acceptable. And we also have a lot of interference of what we've done to the planet through our diet, our nutrition, our, I call it unintended consequences of our industrial revolution, where we've polluted, we have mucked up a lot of the cellular process, which we don't know enough about yet,
Exactly.
how the DNA really works. And so a lot of people are checking out and see this as an opportunity to do that. And so, and the other thing is we've done a lot of work we've prolonged people with heart disease, we've prolonged people with diabetes, but we're not doing that well with cancer because we really don't know it. We know bits and pieces. We don't know it yet. We don't know what it is about. And it's a multifaceted condition. And we're approaching it in sort of one-dimensional way, which is through science. But we need to approach it in a couple of different other ways to really understand it. It's basically unchecked growth.
Yes.
And if you look at it that way, and the areas of where it takes place, because cancer is an emotional disease.
Yeah.
Brought on by these other external circumstances. But it's an emotional disease, so what's going on with you emotionally? Because until you get to that, it won't stay away. You can have surgery and burn it and we'll do everything else, but it will visit you again if you don't deal with your emotional conditions.
Exactly.
And it's been a very interesting pattern where a female who, say, has lost a child, gone through a very big emotional scene, within a year and a half will develop breast cancer. And if they don't understand and get to the source of that, of what really is going on, and treat the immune system as well as all the other drugs and things, and the emotional component of what brought this, what was the deep-seated emotion, it's very hard to really get rid of this.
That's true.
So
Good point.
it has to be treated very differently. So a lot of people, the stress and the strain of all of these things going on, and the upheaval of leaving a Piscean age and going into this big age of being, one of the things that America suffers from is to be the hothouse for the individual. I mean, everybody else seems to have their tribe or their group or their family. You go to Europe, they go out on Sunday strolls, we don't. We go to Walmart and we get caught up.
Right.
And so we are pretty much independent, pioneering people. There's a very high price to pay for that. You're kind of on your own. It's pride here. You're prideful that we are individual. We acknowledge our sense of we want our freedom and we want independence and we are individuals. Well, that's a lonely place.
Yes, it is.
It really is. And so we have a lot of depression. We have huge amount of antidepressant drugs because guess what? We're a business and we're a marketing country. We're five. We market it all. And so you have this individual price to pay of depression and a lot of emotional diseases.
And that's all about trying to balance what? Independence with dependence or interdependence?
Understanding how to develop the individual. So we're the hothouse for the world on how the individual gets developed. That's why we have people from all over the world here. You can't go to any other country with this mishmash of people like this.
Right.
And so we have it. And it's a train that's left the station. You can try very hard to hang on to the old, but it can't. And the old Piscean age, which is going and going and going away, was made up of suffering and guilt and strong religion and punishment and life, afterlife of saving. So you could have a lousy life here, but then you could get a good one later after, And so all of your religions that have to do with the experiences of our modern-day person now are all from the old Piscean age. Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism. Judaism is really, the Israelite religion is ancient, but the rabbinical order is Piscean age. The rabbinical order is very interesting. It is not the religion of Israelite. It is the order of the Judaic rabbinical order, created about 100, 150 years after, say AD. So we have all these religions that were man-made, and we are torn, trying to be individuals in a very religious world. So it creates all kinds of issues. So America is a hothouse, and you see it happen all the time.
Well, as you talk about things changing in the times, we're about to come into a new year here in just a couple of months.
Right.
What do you see ahead for us in that year? Anything universal that we can all kind of look for?
Well, we're kind of fried from this year. We're all like burned out because there's been so much war and economic, and I would say one thing we should be is probably calming down a bit. It is an 8 year for the global, so it is a year where we should be, don't like that word, but would best be tending to understanding how to manifest, how to harvest, and less involved with altercations, worldwide altercations. People will be very weary of war next year, and you will begin also to see in the money world, big changes in the money world. I do believe that there will be loosening up of monies for businesses, for some change. You're already seeing some changes in the housing, but so my feeling is it should be a better year than 2014, which was very much a war year.
Yes.
And I think there will be less war next year overall, and you will still have very low interest rates, very, very low inflation. And the further we go out away from oil, we also should maintain fairly low oil prices, which makes goods and services cheaper and the dollar stronger, because the rest of the world is even in worse shape than we are. So the United States has a very fortunate chart at birth. So even though it goes through this icky, and right now the corporate and the government sleep together every night. So
I love the way you put that.
They do. They're in the same bed, pillow talking, the corporations and the government. So this period is going to go on till about 2023. But the American people have been putting up with it for a long time, and they have said it was okay, so they let it all happen. And it's our fault. You don't look for a lot of change for several more years, and then you will start to see it. And many things will begin to reverse once we get to 2024. You'll start the reverse of all of this. I'm amazed. Jerry Brown, the governor of our state in California, just signed into law all these rules and regulations about sex on campus. And so that you have to know what is really a no, and what did you mean by that? And even maybe touching somebody on the arm could be, considered assault. It's balmy. But what this has brought in is tremendous amount of regulations and rules through this rough period. Since 2008, we are more regulated, we are more feed out, giving more fees, and we are more, we'll say, laws that, every which way you turn.
It's ridiculous. I think where everybody's just numb. I look at the things that we sign and agree to every day. We don't even read them anymore. Everybody's just overwhelmed with it all. It's like they're all gone to sleep.
It's very hard on us to start businesses and things with all this going on.
Yeah.
But this is the corporate government bedfellows. It's part of the time of this contraction that I said, that last 16-year cycle, and we started it in 2008. So understand it's still going on for several more years. But it's a cycle that's repeating the American Revolution. So if I could say anything, this period is similar from 1760 to 1779. So if you go back to 1760 and you look at the French and you weren't growing up to that period, where we finally declare our independence from King George, we will finally declare ourselves independent from the government itself with all its heavy-handed and its waste. But this takes more time. We're not ready. We're barely awake. We're just worn.
We are. Everybody just looks tired.
Everybody's tired.
Yeah.
And you feel so, you almost want to say it's okay, and somebody who's acting foolishly, well, they're just suffering more. You have to be able to, because we're all part of the same group. That's what's so amazing. And one of the levelers of all this is the lack of water, where it doesn't matter whether you're, blue, green, or white, folks. If you don't have water, what are you going to do? So it's all about, we're all in this together. So right now, it looks bad, but it is not, and we will be removing this period of time, but it takes time. And so individually, each person needs to wake up to their own plan and stop trying to fix everybody else. I lived in Houston one time, And a group of women, do-gooders, went over there to meet with Mother Teresa because they wanted to do some work. And she sent them all back. She told them to go home and do this where you live. Do this in your own household.
That's great. Really, we do that, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, if we could only understand our own blueprints, our own timing, our own greatness, what a difference. And that we're always a choice, that we have free will within reason of our plan. And we're always being instructed. Pay attention to dreams. Very, very important.
Well, you're talking about us living with learning our own blueprint and plan and living within that. And so I would like to also point out, you do these charts for people, right, as well? People can contact you directly and get a lot more information about themselves, or they can buy your book and do some of the work on their own, or both?
Or both, yeah. I recommend both, really, because the session lasts for years. I mean, you use this, go back and listen and extrapolate more information to help you. Because sometimes we're not going to bloom for quite a while.
Right.
I can remember when I had a session when I was like 42 and I was told my greatest years began at 64. I was dumbfounded. What are you talking about? This is what's right here. I'm like, are you serious? I said to her, what do I do in the meantime? And she said, oh, darling, you don't know who you are. You have to grow. I'll never forget it. But we do have, some people start very early and then stop and then bloom again later. And it's all there. And it really is helpful to know so that you can make better decisions, know your timing. Some years, like 4 years, or really roll up your sleeves. Don't worry, just roll up your sleeves and work. You're laying a foundation for future years.
So it kind of puts everything back into a bigger perspective that's more helpful.
It does. And you don't say, oh, how long is this going to last? It's like, oh, my God. No. Nothing lasts forever, even the bad times.
That seems like a great note on which to wrap this up, that nothing lasts forever, and keep it all in context.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. We've been talking with Gail Minogue, GailMinogue.com. Thank you so much. Any parting words?
No, just keep growing and stay out of fear and worry. And I look forward to, if you sign up, look forward to staying in touch with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a moving story about your own journey and natural healing path you'd like to share? Drop us a note. info@journeyofpossibilities.com. Until next time, this is Cheryl Sitz reminding you to use your passions and make a bigger difference. Let's co-create holistic sustainability for ourselves and for our planet. Namaste.